Hi, welcome to our talk looking at stress and Alzheimer's disease. So why are we interested in stress? Well, stress hormones, and in humans we're talking about cortisol as the main one of these, have been associated with faster cognitive decline in Alzheimer's disease. That means that people who have Alzheimer's disease and have higher levels of cortisol do worse over time compared to those with lower levels of cortisol. And these stress hormone levels can change for a number of reasons, but we know that one of those is the experience of stressful life events. And these are things such as divorce, death of a loved one, or financial worries. Stressful experiences in early life have been found in previous research to be associated with structural changes to the brain. And the ability to cope with stress later in life has been associated with tau levels in the brain, whereby better stress coping has been associated with lower tau. So we wanted to look at this in the European Prevention of Alzheimer's Dementia longitudinal cohort study. This was a cohort study that ran from 2016 to 2020, recruiting over 2,000 participants across Europe who were living at varying risk for Alzheimer's dementia. Participants completed a number of assessments, and one of those was recording life events that they had experienced. Participants also completed memory tasks, and for this project, we're interested in the primary outcome of the R-bands, which is a battery of cognitive tests, as well as lumbar punctures, which is where we collect a small amount of spinal fluid and analyse it for biomarkers. In this case, it was phosphorylated tau, or p-tau, and amyloid beta 142, or A beta 142, which are proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease. In this study, we were interested in looking at the relationship between the number of life events, the age of life events, and memory test scores and Alzheimer's disease biomarkers. So what did we find? Well, looking at who was in our cohort, our participants were 65 years of age on average, mainly female with a family history of dementia, and 40% of them had at least one copy of the ApoE4 allele. They had 4.7 life events on average and experienced them in their midlife. The R-bands, the p-tau and the A-beta levels here tell us that they are, in general, a relatively healthy population. They're not yet meeting criteria for Alzheimer's disease or Alzheimer's disease dementia. And so when we look at our analyses, we find that as the number of life events and the age of the life events increases, p-tau also increases, and higher p-tau would be associated with Alzheimer's disease. However, importantly here, this was not significant in our adjusted models. So that means when we add in covariates that might explain this relationship, the significance goes away. In particular, it was age and ApoE4 that nullified this relationship. We didn't find any significant association at all with A beta 142 and life events. So when we looked at the R-bands, we looked at the total score and found no associations, but we also looked at the delayed memory index. And we found here that as the number of life events increased, the delayed memory index also increased. And this did remain significant even when we controlled for age, sex, family history of dementia, ApoE4 status, and education. So why might this matter? Well, this study has an interesting finding that the greater number of life events were associated with a higher memory test score in the EPAD participants. And it may be that the stress coping that we saw from the earlier study is playing a role here. However, we don't have enough information available from our data to actually unpick the mechanisms here. And doing this type of research and understanding stress as a risk factor is a really important part of our prevention work because it may be an area of opportunity to intervene. We think this is particularly relevant given the COVID-19 pandemic, where we anticipate that levels of stress and the experience of stressful life events has increased globally. And while we obviously cannot stop a lot of these stressful life events from happening, we can change how we support people to process and recover from these and potentially reduce any long-term harmful risks of the increased cortisol levels that might occur during these events. Finally, a thank you to the participants, their study partners, our participant panel members, and the many staff in the EPAD consortium. Also, thank you to our funders, the Innovative Medicines Initiative, and the continued funding from the Alzheimer's Association. Finally, I'd be very happy to answer any questions in the forums during the conference or via my email address there, and the Twitter handles for the study, our centre, and for myself. Thank you very much for listening.